maybe I think if you have mobile you can log in, because I am sharing something. So yesterday we were discussing benefits of knowing Krishna. So I made a point that what is so generally in the material world, in material consciousness, we think of benefits, advantages, what we will get. But in Vrindavan, so devotees simply engage in devotional service. They are simply attracted to Krishna. They don't even know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is difference between Vrindavan consciousness and material consciousness. So first point, what are the benefits? But before we go to that Vrindavan consciousness, we need this knowledge. So knowledge of Krishna is all encompassing, or if we know Krishna, everything knowable becomes known. Or by knowing Krishna, one acquires all required knowledge. So we also, I have just edited these titles a little bit. So one will become free from material bondage and attains Krishna's abode. There is some mistake here. So attains Krishna's abode. So for the first point, one knows if one knows Krishna, then everything knowable becomes known. And by knowing Krishna, one acquires all required knowledge. So we saw that verse from 7th chapter Bhagavad Gita. Jnanam teham sa vidnyanam idam vaksham yasheshatah yajnatva neha bhuyonyad jnatavyam avashishyate. Krishna says, now I will speak both jnana and vidnyana by knowing this. Jnana and vidnyana means? Jnana means knowledge of Krishna's opulences, and vidnyana means Krishna's sweetness. So by knowing that, nothing remains to be known, he says, Krishna. So of course we can't know everything of Krishna, but whatever we little know, then everything knowable becomes known. In the purport, Prabhupada very nicely he writes, when the cause of all causes becomes known, then everything knowable becomes known and nothing remains unknown. So then he quotes verse from Mundaka Upanishad. Kasmin no bhagavo vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavati. So then we saw that what is... So in Mundaka Upanishad, from Mundaka Upanishad he quotes that verse, which was actually a question asked by Shaunaka Rishi to Angirasa Muni. So then next one we saw that by knowing Krishna, one will be free from material bondage and attains Krishna's abode. So this is another famous verse in Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma cha me divyam yevam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna. My birth and appearance and activities are transcendental. Leelas are transcendental. Those who know them in truth, he will never return to this world and he will come back to me. He will come to my abode like that. So we saw in the purport that becoming free from material bondage is not so easy thing. So but by knowing Krishna in truth, one will become free from material bondage. So that is the advantage of knowledge of Krishna. And so third one, in this actually I wanted to say, one will become free from material bondage and attains to Krishna's abode. There is that verse which so 4.9 was that Janma Karma Cha Divyam, and then Another verse which we quoted was Evam Nyatva Kratam Karma Purvairapi Mumukshubhi Kuru Karmaiva Tasmatvam Purvai Purvataram Kratam. This is 4.15. In that verse, Krishna says that all liberated soul in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Now, this is basically, Krishna says, when we do our prescribed duties, this is actually indicating to karma mimamsakas, because previous verses, if you see, there is description about that varnashrama, chaturvarnya maya srashtam gunakarma vibhagashah tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram abhyayam. So Krishna is the creator of varnashrama and he is transcendental to it. But karma mimamsakas, they say that Krishna is also subject to karma. Karma is the highest authority. So, but here Krishna says, understanding my transcendental nature, all liberated souls in the ancient times acted with that understanding. So therefore, we should know Krishna's transcendental nature. So because previous liberated souls, they acted like that. So if we want to become liberated also, we have to understand Krishna's transcendental nature. So then next, one will become free from all sinful reactions. I mentioned that becoming free from material bondage means, it also means becoming free from sinful reactions, because any karma we do in this world, they are part and parcel of this material world, or they are enacted under the influence of material nature. So karmic reactions, karma is also under Prakriti. Third chapter, that famous verse is there, no? Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. So activities are part and parcel of Prakriti, or we can say it is universe, part and parcel of universe. But still, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 10.3, Yo mamajam anadim cha veti loka maheshwaram asamooda samarteshu sarva papai pramuchyate. Those who he who knows me as the unborn, as beginningless, as supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only, undeluded among men, is freed from all sins. So first thing is ajam, yomam ajam, Krishna is unborn. Anadim, he has no beginning, anadi word. Vetiloka maheshwaram, so he is the Lord of all the worlds. So one who knows like that, Veti means knowing. Asamooda means without any doubt, or that doubtless person. Samarteshu, sarva papai pramuchyate, sarva papa, all the sins, he is freed from all the sins, sarva papa. So yesterday I didn't purport, I have cut down some of this things from the purport. In that stage only, when Prabhupada writes that, in that stage only, which stage it is? That knowledge, when one attains knowledge that Krishna is unborn, beginningless, and Lord of all the worlds, at that stage, when one, so Prabhupada here again qualifies that, when one has fully understood Krishna's supreme position, one can be free from completely from all sinful reactions. Sri Krishna is therefore different from everything that is created, and anyone who knows him as such immediately becomes liberated from all sinful reactions. So these are relevant statements from the purport. I am not reading the entire purport. A man who is not foolish, who is intelligent enough to understand the constitutional position of Godhead, is always free from all sinful reactions. To engage or become fixed in unalloyed. Why we need knowledge of Krishna? or what is the benefit of knowing Krishna? One will become fixed in unalloyed devotional service, or engaged in unalloyed devotional service. Our knowledge of Krishna is impetus for unalloyed devotional service. So for this, Krishna in 10.7 he says, Yetam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo vetti tatvata so vikalpena yogena yujyate natra samshaya. Now, previous other, okay, by knowing Krishna we know everything becomes knowable. We become free from material bondage. We become free from sinful reactions. All are there side products of knowledge of Krishna. The main result of knowledge of Krishna is we become engaged or fixed in unalloyed devotional service. This is main why we should know Krishna. All other things, they are side product. They are becoming sinful and free from the sins, becoming free from material bondage, etc. So the main reason why we want to know Krishna is, we want to cultivate knowledge of Krishna is that we want to become fixed in unalloyed devotional service. So like today there was one question, how we can develop faith, and how we can become free from doubts. So this is, by cultivating knowledge we become fixed in devotionals without any doubts. So here Krishna, etam vibhutim yogam cha mamayo vetti tatvatah so vikalpena yogena yujyate natra samshayaha. So etam vibhutim yogam cha, one who knows my vibhutis and yogam. Vibhutim and yogam, what are those? Vibhutis means opulences. Yoga means his energies, potencies. So mamayo vetti tatvata, know them in truth as they are, vetti tatvataha. Then so vikalpena yogena yujyate natra samshayaha. One will engage in avikalpena yogena. So avikalpa yoga or unalloyed devotional service. Avyabhichari yoga, avyabhichari bhakti, or yesterday I mentioned Uttama bhakti, Shuddha bhakti, Kevala bhakti, Ananya bhakti. These are all equivalents. Avikalpena, unalloyed. Prabhupada used unalloyed. Of course, there are slight difference to all these words. Ananya, avyabhicharini, this means like without any distractions, without going here and there. Avyabhicharini. Vyabhicharini means what? Who? Prostitute is called vyabhichari. She never remains fixed with one man. So like that, avyabhicharini means remaining fixed in devotion to Krishna. Avyabhicharini bhakti. So Uttama bhakti, supermost devotional service. Shuddha bhakti, pure devotional service. But essentially, they mean pure devotional service. Yujyate natra samshayaha. So he will become engaged. In that there is no doubt, Krishna says. So we may have so many doubts. Our faith may be very weak. But when we understand Krishna's knowledge and Krishna's opulences and his potencies, so which are described in this 10th chapter, because this verse is 10.7. Of course, even before that, 7th chapter onwards, Krishna speaks about. And throughout Bhagavad Gita, everywhere we will find Krishna's opulences, his energies being discussed. So like that, etam vibhutim yogam cha mamayo. Now, if you see, literally if you see from 7th chapter onwards, Krishna starts speaking about his energies and opulences. But before that also, in many other ways, indirect way, his opulences, and like you see, Krishna, again and again, he is addressed with different names in 1st chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. They all also explain Krishna's opulences and potencies. Rashikesha, then Madhusudana, Harisudana, and all these kind of things. So here, what is a translation? One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. So purport, relevant section I am doing. I am not reading the entire purport. The highest summit of spiritual perfection is knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The highest summit of spiritual perfection is knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So basically it means what? So what are other spiritualists? They know Brahman, impersonal Brahman, Jnanis, and yogis know Paramatma. They see Paramatma in the heart. Dhyana avastadgatena manasa pashyanti yam yoginaha. Now Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prabhupada used this term for Bhagavan. So the Bhagavan aspect of the Supreme Lord, Supreme Absolute Truth. That is a perfection, spiritual perfection in knowledge. Vadanti tattva vidastatvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdate. So that verse is understood in two ways. One is that those who are knowers of the absolute truth, they have defined, explained absolute truth as, they have called absolute truth as Brahma, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Three names. So like yesterday I mentioned, in the Vedas mostly Brahma word comes more, and sometimes Paramatma, and rarely Bhagavan, and Krishna never, hardly anywhere it comes. Because Vedas and all Vedic literatures are described in only Bhagavatam very clearly presents. That is the uniqueness of Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course some other Puranas and all this, some are there. But original Vedic literature plus Upanishads and all indirectly. That is called as Aparokshavad. So Krishna doesn't like to reveal himself, therefore Aparokshavad is used, that technique. Indirect descriptions. Okay, the highest summit of spiritual perfection is knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless one is firmly convinced of the different opulences of the Supreme Lord, he cannot engage in devotional service. So, if we want to become fixed in devotional service, we should try to understand Krishna's opulences and his potencies. Like what I said yesterday, like in this world also we see that a boy and girl, they come together. Nowadays there is that trend is there that. So traditionally it was mixing between men and women was not allowed. So only after marriage, some regulated way they were. So now it is, everything is unregulated. Cats and dogs society. So unless one is, so the trend is, what is that? A boy comes and boy and girl come together. Then the boy says, I love you, or a girl says, I love you. So if they don't know each other, they will say, okay, let us know each other, understand. Or nowadays, before marriage, let us understand each other. Traditionally, I mentioned that traditionally there was a perfect system of, that horoscope matching actually, astrologically, they would calculate. Yesterday I mentioned that. So anyway, if one has to, that modern understanding is there, if we have to understand that person to develop attraction for him or love for him. Similarly here, if we want to love Krishna, we should know about him. We should know about his glories. So generally people know that God is great, but they do not know in detail how God is great. Here the details. If one knows factually how God is great, then naturally he becomes a surrendered soul and engages himself in devotional service of the Lord. So when one factually knows the opulences of the Supreme, there is no alternative but to surrender to him. So opulences of the Lord. That's why 10th chapter, 11th chapter, we should know all these things. These are some of the opulences of the Supreme Lord. When one is firmly convinced of them, he accepts Krishna with great faith and without any doubt, and he engages in devotional service. All this particular knowledge is required in order to increase one's interest in loving devotional service of the Lord. One should not neglect to understand fully how great Krishna is. For by knowing greatness of Krishna, one will be able to be fixed in sincere devotional service. So particularly Bhagavad Gita, because it speaks about Krishna's opulences and energies, after studying Bhagavad Gita or hearing Bhagavad Gita, what will be the ones? So state that one will be firmly convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. So then automatically one will engage in devotional service. So in this connection, next verse is also important. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. So those who know that Krishna is the source of everything and everything emanates from him, so he will engage in devotional service to Krishna with love and faith. So I am the source of all spiritual and material. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So Buddha Bhava Samanvita. So purport is very nice. Again, I am not reading entire purport, only relevant to our topic. Benefits of knowing Krishna, that topic. A learned scholar who has studied the Vedas perfectly and has information from authorities like Lord Chaitanya, and who knows how to apply these teachings, can understand that Krishna is the origin of everything in both material and spiritual worlds. And because he knows this perfectly, he becomes firmly fixed in devotional service of the Supreme Lord. He can never be deviated by any amount of nonsensical commentaries or by fools. Prabhupada says. He becomes firmly fixed in devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So we should know Krishna is the origin of both material and spiritual worlds. Lord is the source of all generations, and he is called the most efficient cause of everything. He says, because everything is born of me, I am the original source of all. Everything is under me. No one is above me. There is no supreme controller other than Krishna. One who understands Krishna in such a way from a bona fide spiritual master with references from Vedic literature engages all his energy in Krishna consciousness and becomes truly learned person. So this engages all his energy in Krishna consciousness. Not little half of. Full. Engages all his energy in Krishna. This is the result of knowing Krishna. In comparison to him, all others who do not know Krishna properly are but fools. Only a fool would consider Krishna to be an ordinary person. These lines are connected with some other topic, but anyway, I'll finish to read this. A Krishna conscious person should not be bewildered by fools. He should avoid all unauthorized commentaries and interpretations of Bhagavad Gita and proceed in Krishna consciousness with determination and firmness. Okay, then next quote is from 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. You all know 15th chapter is Purushottama Yoga, and this is the last verse of Purushottama Yoga. 19th that is. Yo mam evam asammudo janati purushottamam sarvavid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. It's 20th, I think. So I'm referencing this mistake here, I think. Okay, 19th only. So previous verses 10.7, 10.8. 10.8 onwards it is Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita in 4 verses. 10.8, 9, 10, 11. and before that the 10.7 we read. So now this 15.9 comes after 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita. So those 17, 18, 19 like that. So they are considered as 16, 17, 18 are considered as 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita. Because in the 15th verse Krishna says, I am the knower of the Vedas, I am the compiler of Vedanta, I am to be known by Vedas. Then he explains in 3 verses the essence of all the Vedas and essence of Bhagavad Gita. So it is called as 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita. So just after that this verse comes, 19th verse. After Yomam evam asammodo janati purushottamam sasarva vid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. So whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. So this is connected with our first point. One who knows Krishna, he knows everything, right? That was our first point. Here sarva vid word comes that. Yomam evam asammodo janati purushottamam sa sarva vid. One who knows me as Purushottama without any doubt, he is knower of everything, sarva vid. That was our first point. Jnanam teham savidnyanam, cause of all causes. One who knows cause of all, everything knowable becomes known. Nothing remains unknown, like that Prabhupada he wrote. Here also sarva vid, sasarva vid. So then after knowing what he does, he therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me. O son of Bharata, sarva bhavena Bharata, bhajati mam sarva bhavena Bharata. Again and again Prabhupada, full, of course that word sarva comes there, and you can see in his purports again and again, fully, completely engages in devotional service, not part-time. Actually bhakti means not part-time. Part-time means it goes down, lower rungs of yoga ladder actually. So you have karma, then you engage it in Krishna's service. Results you offer it to Krishna, somewhat like karma yoga. Now it is like vikarma yoga in modern days. So we go to the lower rungs of yoga ladder actually. Bhakti means it is fully engaged in, full surrender to Krishna, that's it. So that is how in Bhagavad Gita it is. Again and again it comes, no? Tasma sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yuddhecha satatam kirtayanto mam nitya yukta upasate nitya satatam sarveshu kaleshu. Like that, so many places it comes in Bhagavad Gita. Generally we don't know what it is actually, what kind of Vaidhi Bhakti it is explained in Bhagavad Gita. So that Vaidhi Bhakti means 24 hours you have to engage in one of the activities of Bhakti. That is Bhakti. Bhakti Yoga means. So then if we are doing part-time, like many of our congregation members, of course in the beginning it is not possible, we should also understand. So we tell them, okay, you chant 16 rounds. So some reading of books, some kirtan, something, some puja, like that. But gradually everyone has to come to this full devotional service. So there are many philosophical speculations about the constitutional position of the living entities, the Supreme and the Supreme Absolute Truth. Now in this verse, Supreme Personality of God clearly explains that anyone who knows Lord Krishna to be the Supreme Person is actually the knower of everything. The imperfect knower goes on simply speculating about the Absolute Truth, but the perfect knower, without wasting his valuable time, engages directly in Krishna consciousness, the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Through the whole of Bhagavad Gita, this fact is being stressed at every step, and still there are so many stubborn commentators on Bhagavad Gita who consider the Supreme Absolute Truth and living entities to be one and the same. Vedic knowledge is called Shruti, learning by oral reception. One should actually receive Vedic message from authorities like Krishna and his representatives. Here Krishna distinguishes everything very nicely. One should hear from this source. Simply to hear like the hogs is not sufficient. So very heavy. Simply to hear like hogs. I don't know what he meant by hearing like hogs. One must be able to understand from the authorities. It is not that one should simply, okay, here it comes. It is not that one should simply speculate academically. So it's a criticism of academic study of Vedic scriptures. One should submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita, and these living entities are always subordinate to Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is able to understand this according to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, knows the purpose of the Vedas. No one else knows the purpose of the Vedas. So the word bhajati is very significant. In many places the word bhajati is expressed in relationship with the service of the Supreme Lord. Actually that bhajadhatu, bhaj means engaging in service. It's not some general worship, it is engaging in service. If a person is engaged in full Krishna consciousness in devotional service of the Lord, it is to be understood that he has understood all Vedic knowledge. In the Vaishnava Parampara, it is said that if one is engaged in devotional service of Krishna, then there is no need for any other spiritual process for understanding the Supreme Absolute Truth. He has already come to the point because he is engaged in devotional service of the Lord. He has ended all preliminary processes of understanding. But if anyone, after speculating for hundreds of thousands of lives, does not come to the point that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God and that one has to surrender there, all his speculation for so many years and lives are useless waste of time. Okay, before this, some small section I wanted to have. There are so many misconceptions about Krishna. Now we understood what are the benefits of knowing Krishna. So, but we are eager to know Krishna now. Okay, after knowing the benefits of knowing Krishna, we should become eager to know Krishna. But there are so many misconceptions about Krishna people have. Some say that, oh, Krishna was immoral. He did immoral activities like that, they say. Some say that he was a politician because diplomatic politician. In Kurukshetra war he did so much politics. So like that they say. Or sometimes they bring up an issue that, oh, why he did Rasalila. And because of doing this, some people consider that he is in hell. There is some so-called religion which says like that. Then why he married so many wives, as though, I don't know what the problem they have. Well, of course, nowadays this polygamy is considered as a evil in society. So, which is nonsense. You can divorce, you can do prostitution, but you can't have polygamy. So like that. So many misconceptions about Krishna. In fact, among all the avatars, so Krishna is the most misunderstood avatara. So obviously, because Krishna is supreme among all the avatars, he is considered as fountainhead of all the avatars, and he is called as Purna Purushottama. He manifests all his completeness of Godhead. So he fully manifests himself. In other avatars he doesn't fully manifest. That is the difference between Krishna and his avatars. Although they are all one personality. But we should know that before knowing, going into all these controversies about Krishna, first one should know that knowledge about Krishna is very rare. Not everyone can understand. Here I have not quoted that verse in this, but we all know that verse, famous verse, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin ma veti tatvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Here Siddhi, perfection means what it is actually. Siddhi means once long back when I was wandering in internet, that video of Prabhupada, final lesson, Prabhupada departure video is there. So somebody has uploaded that in YouTube. Many people must have uploaded. I was just seeing the comments, what people have commented on that. One fellow has commented, we know that Prabhupada was a great devotee, but he may not be Siddha Purusha like Raman Maharshi or somebody else like that. So these guys, they comment without knowledge what they are, the words which they are using. Like many times these words, Sadguru, Jagadguru, Siddha Purusha, these words are used in a very, without any knowledge of what it meant actually. Siddha Purusha, Siddhi means what? First we should know what is Siddhi, because here in Bhagavad Gita, 3rd verse of 7th chapter, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhai. Among the thousands of people who attempt to make their life perfect. What is perfection of life? Siddhi means what? Who will tell? No. If you take that as knowing Krishna, and among those people who have attained Siddhanam, Siddha Purusha, Siddhas, Kaschin ma veti, only rarely one knows me, he says. If you say Siddhi is knowing Krishna, then it will become contradictory, with the next statement which follows. What is the meaning of Siddhi? Brahman realization, Brahma Bhuta. Perfection of life. Any other questions? Any other answers? What is he saying? Perfection of life. What are goals of life actually? Of course, if you ask this question in modern days, they'll say, I want to become a big shots, maybe a big globalist or something like that.
Going back to God.
In Vedic culture, whenever we study Vedic, you wanted to say? Yeah, goals of life. What are the goals of life? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Now, if one attains Moksha, all these answers are correct. Your answer is correct. Your answer is also correct. If one attains Moksha, he is considered as perfected soul, Siddha Purusha, because these are the 4 goals of life. Highest among them is Moksha. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So, you said Brahma Jnana and Brahma Bhuta stage, which is also true. Because once one attains Brahma Jnana, beginning stage of Brahma Jnana is I am not this body. means he should feel that aloofness from that body. He will realize completely indifferent to material bodily functions. So that is Brahma Bhuta stage. Na kangshati, na shochati. He is fully sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labate param. So that Brahma Bhuta stage, Brahma Jnana, or moksha. So moksha begins from where? What is the concept of moksha? So this self-realization. That means I am not this body. From there it comes. Below that we are bound. Conditioned souls. We will be still engaged in eating, sleeping, mating, depending. So Manushanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye. This knowledge, Siddhi means this Brahma Jnana. And among all those people who have achieved Siddhi, one knows Krishna rarely. Or rarely one knows Krishna. So this is again re-corroborated in the same chapter, 7th verse. Same chapter, 19th verse. Bahunam janmanam ante Jnanavan Mam. What is that? Bahunam janmanam ante Mam prapadyate. Yeah. Bahunam janmanam ante Jnanavan Mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. After many lifetimes of cultivating knowledge, when one comes to the perfection of knowledge, then he surrenders to Krishna. So that Brahma Jnana, after cultivating that spiritual knowledge for many lifetimes, so then one surrenders to Krishna. Knowing what? That Vasudeva is everything. Vasudeva is everything. And then Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Such a soul is rare. Such a great soul is rare. Sudurlabha, he says. Durlabha means Sudurlabha. Therefore, knowledge among the spiritualists also, genuine spiritualists. I am not talking about pseudo spiritualists. Even Mayavadis externally they may be what? They may be good sadhus or whatever. Advaitavadis, they may be good sadhus and they may have so many followers. They may be head of some mutt or something. But not necessarily they may be so genuinely self-realized souls. Among them also, knower of Krishna is very rare. That's why pure devotees are very rare in this world. Kechit kevalaya. What is that? Muktanam api siddhanam Vasudeva parayana Sudurlabho prashantatma Kotishvapi mahamuni. Same what is spoken in these two verses of Bhagavad Gita in 6th canto of Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami said to Parikshit Maharaj, among the muktas and siddhas, muktanam api siddhanam, Vasudeva parayana, one who is Vasudeva parayana, fully absorbed in Krishna. And he is so Prashantatma. Prashantatma means he is fully pure. He is fully peaceful. Who can be peaceful? One who is free from all material desires, he only can be peaceful. If you have any one material desire, it will not allow us to remain peaceful. We will be always unrest. There will always be unrest. Prashantatma. Sudurlabho prashantatma. Sudurlabho prashantatma. Kotishvapi mahamuni. So, Kotishvapi, among millions and millions of self-realized souls, siddhas, and who are there especially in modern society, siddhas and these foolish fellows they write in internet, because everyone has facility to write, comment or speak. So we call it as verbal loose motion. Everyone wants to express their opinions without any knowledge. So no clue of what is actually Siddhi, etc. So I will just little read from the commentary about rarity of Krishna's knowledge. There are various grades of men. Out of many thousands, and one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is self, what is the body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, depending, mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. Later in the same chapter, Prabhupada says 99 point. So 90 well, how much? 99.9% of the people are Moodas and Naradamas. In the 15th verse, Namam Dushkrutino Mooda Prapadyante Naradama Maya Paharta Jnana Asuram. So Prabhupada said that is a very important verse of Bhagavad Gita. And sometime whenever doubt or our faith becomes weak, we should read that verse actually. Then our faith will become strong. Why? Because Krishna clearly says that all the people in this world who do not surrender to him, they are Moodas, rascals, Naradamas, fools, lowest among men, atheist rascals, like that he says. Krishna. So Prabhupada used to quote that. How we measure every different other people, we measure according to this verse. How we, in the material sense, he may be a great personality. He may be a big PhD, big that, this Mahatma, that Mahatma, so many great personalities in the world. But according to Krishna's words, they are Naradama, Mooda, all rascals. So we don't want to become like that. So when I read Bhagavad Gita first time, it gave me a lot of conviction. So generally mankind is simply engaged in animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, depending and mating. And hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first 6 chapters of Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge, in understanding the self, the super soul, and the process of self-realization by Jnana Yoga and discrimination of the self from matter. Okay. So here it says, although it is very difficult for non-devotees to know him, so although non-devotees declare that path of bhakti or devotional service is very easy and they cannot practice it. Means here Prabhupada he brings that point that people, this Mayamadis, Jnanis, so-called Vedantists and all, they say that bhakti is meant for less intelligent people and we are intelligent people, we study only Vedanta, like that they say. But according to Krishna here, even they do not know Krishna actually, like that. Okay, so it is not possible for Brahman realized impersonalist or the Paramatma realized yogi to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the son of Mother Yashoda or the charioteer of Arjuna. So especially Krishna's pastimes make it more difficult to know him actually. Like you see, people make a point that, how he can be God? Because he was born to Devaki. Like that they say. Or he has become chariot driver. In those days also, to become chariot driver was very not such a big thing actually. It was not acceptable. It was a prestige issue. Like Shishupala, he criticized Krishna. Who are you? You are a Kshatriya or Vaishya or what you are actually? And sometime he he becomes a chariot driver, actually, which is actually Shudra work. So it becomes difficult for people to understand. Only devotees can understand. Even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Muhyanti yat surayaha. This is from first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Mam tu vedana kasyana. You know that Brahma could not understand. Brahma's main confusion was he has become a coward boy in some village. Some village means in some forest. And he every day goes with cows and coward boys, and they all sit together, they eat. Sometimes they eat half-eaten things, they give it to Krishna. For Brahma it is inconceivable because he worships Lord by following so much rigid rules of the Vedas, very strict. So very strict, lot of shuchi, muchi understanding should be there. That means, so dirty, like today children came to make laddus. Immediately we stopped. Because children will contaminate everything actually. It is unoperable to Krishna. So it is unoperable to Krishna. So such rules and regulations. And here he is being eaten by others. There are also description. They fill their mouth with buttermilk and and that will directly go into Krishna's mouth. And more, even these are okay, these are more gross for Brahma. Even Krishna holding foodstuff in the left hand is also unthinkable for Brahma actually. It is unthinkable for Brahma, holding food in left hand. And here he is seeing, he is holding food in his left hand and he is half eating, just roaming around and nothing. What is this? So therefore he could not understand. And anyway, this there is also an example of Indra. That Govardhan Leela is one thing. He became upset that Brajavasis, this Krishna stopped the worship of Indra. So he was very upset with that because he had become so puffed up and proud that I am the king of all the demigods. Who is this boy? So those words there, Balishya, Stabda, this boy is childish and arrogant, he doesn't know anything. Like that, very heavy criticism of Indra is being described there in the 10th canto. That's okay, that is one pastime, but even worst situation of Indra is that incident of Parijata tree, which. So just before that, Indra and all the demigods have come to Dwarka, prayed to Krishna, requested Krishna, please protect us from this Narakasura. He is creating havoc. Then Krishna, along with Satyabhama and his driver, carrier bird, Garuda, he goes and kills Narakasura. Then while returning, Krishna just takes away one Parijata tree and Indra becomes upset with that. And they have a fight actually. Imagine how one can become so bewildered. Anyway, Muhyanti yat suraya, they can't understand God. Anyway, Mam tu vedana kasyana, no one knows me as I am. The Lord says, and if one does not know him, then Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. So Prabhupada is connecting with Sa Mahatma, 19th verse, in this purport. Such a great soul is very rare. Therefore, unless one practices devotional service to Lord, one cannot know Krishna as he is, Tattvata, even though one is a great scholar or philosopher. Only a pure devotees. Who can know Krishna? This is another topic which we want to discuss. So only pure devotees can know something of inconceivable transcendental qualities of Krishna. He is being the cause of all causes. His omnipotence and opulence, His wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge and renunciation. So this is then in that 19th verse purport. So the living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge of that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to Him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Krishna is mercy is everything, that He is the cause of all causes, that this material manifestation is not independent from Him. He realizes that material world to be perverted reflection of the spiritual variegatedness and realizes that in everything there is relationship with Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, Supreme Lord. Thus he thinks that everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Now you see, if you see this Advaitavadi, Mayavadis, they will misinterpret this verse also. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan Vasudeva sarvamiti. They will say Vasudeva as all pervading. They will not say it as Krishna, because the Sanskrit word Vasudeva means all pervading. But anyway, Krishna says I am all pervading, so we have to take it as Krishna. Okay, so we'll stop here. Krishna's knowledge is rare. Hare Krishna. Okay, one more quote, sorry. This is from 10.3 purport actually. We read that verse, no? Yomam ajam anadim cha vyatiloka maheshwaram. That verse. As stated in the 7th chapter, 7.3, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Those who are trying to elevate themselves to the platform of spiritual realization are not ordinary men. They are superior to millions and millions of ordinary men who have no knowledge of spiritual realization. But out of those who are actually trying to understand their spiritual situation, one who can come to the understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the proprietor of everything, the unborn, is the most successful spiritually realized person. So he is a rare soul basically. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
So nobody have 100% knowledge about Krishna.
100% knowledge means pure devotees would have knowledge of Krishna. That word is there, samagram, in 7.1. What is that verse? Maya sattamana partha yogam yunjan madashraya asamshayam samagram mam yata jnasyasi trashnuru. So Krishna says, one who engages in devotional service with attachment, with mind attached to me, madashraya, taking shelter of me, so he will know me without any doubt, completely, he says. Samagram means completely. So now completely means what? Can we know Krishna fully? That question arises. So for that, one example I can think of now is, you take a glass full of water or you take half full of water. Full glass, but it is not ocean of glass. Ocean. You cannot fit ocean into glass. But full glass, there is a half glass, or semi-filled glass, or full glass. Whatever, that's why the word in the next verse, whatever knowable, whatever we can know actually, that much we will fully know. That is pure devotees. Others we hardly know, little. Like yesterday I made that point. So in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, we may take it granted, now I know Krishna, like that. Because Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam, my activities and birth and activities are transcendental. So we may think that we know Krishna. But actually we don't know Krishna. There is so much to know about Krishna.
What was that text from? Next one.
Which one? Afternoon or now? That 7.15. That 4 classes of people who do not surrender to me.
One more question. Devotion is love.
So Prabhupada translated it as divine loving service, like that in English.
So one is there are 4 parts of yoga. So one who is following any other paths also can provide this unalloyed devotional service.
Can
Provide unalloyed service.
Okay.
Devotion is love. So if a person is doing Ashtanga yoga, completely concentrating on Krishna, so that would be come under unalloyed. And the person doing karma yoga for fully Krishna with love. So is it an unalloyed service?
No, because there it is Karma Mishra, Jnana Mishra. These other yogas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he defined them as, one thing is that yoga means connecting with God. So in one sense it is bhakti only. Yoga means bhakti it is. So, but in other yogas, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, that element of karma, jnana and dhyana, ashtanga or whatever dhyana, that is more prominent than directly engaging in the service with the Lord, connecting ourselves with the Lord. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains they are Karma Mishra Bhakti, Jnana Mishra Bhakti and Yoga Mishra Bhakti, he says. He defines these yogas as Karma, Jnana, Yoga, Mishra Bhaktis. They are Mishra Bhaktis. They are Bhakti, but they are Mishra Bhaktis. So, like somebody, Karma Yoga means what? Basically it is following our karma, dharma, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, prescribed duties, we say. So he performs those activities, then he offers the results to Krishna. That is Karma Yoga. In the beginning of Karma Yoga, even that is, he may not even know that Krishna is God actually. Often Karma Mimamsakas and all, they just follow Vedas. They do rituals, they may offer their results to some demigods. And in the end they have to offer it to Krishna. Krishnam samarpayami or something in the end. Ultimately it has to offer to the Krishna. So Krishna becomes one among the many demigods. Or sometimes they may just do some donation here and there, some hospital, they are detached from fruits of action. So in Bhagavad Gita, in some purports, Prabhupada explains like that. The beginning stage of Karma Yoga is just some detachment. He may donate it for some material, social, humanitarian causes. So like that. But that is it is not a Karma Yoga. Yoga it is. King Janakadayah.
So throughout their life they are working, but thinking only about Krishna. So
No. One thing is that you can convert it, our occupation, into devotion. That is possible. So there again, Shravanam Kirtanam should be dominant, predominant. So because bhakti is defined as Shravanam Kirtanam, you see how these verses are there, no? Prahlad's verses. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. Pada Sevanam I left, I think. So the next verse after these verses, after listing these 9 angas of bhakti, Kriyeta Bhagavat Adya, Bhagavat Adya. When one does these 9 angas of bhakti directly, Adya means directly. So that is called as bhakti, like that he defines. So now karma can also be devotion when this Navavida bhakti is prominent in our life. Of course, Vikarma Yoga, I use this word. It is not mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Vikarma Yoga. So, first time I read it in the notes of His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj. I think he coined it. So, he wrote that Vikarma Yoga is an impossibility. Like, we do sinful activities and try to connect them to Krishna. So, that is an impossibility, he says, actually. So,
in Bhagavatam, so many places means like Dhruva Maharaj is performing Ashtanga Yoga. They are saying he is providing another devotion.
So sometimes what happens, our Prabhupada, it depends, because his Ashtanga Yoga means in different yugas, you see there is Yuga Dharma also. So in Satya Yuga they would do meditation. That is how they would do unalloyed devotional service. So they are only thinking of Krishna sitting, and that is also there. And in Dwapar Yuga, Yajna, performance of Yajna. But it is not like Yajna which is described in the Vedas for offerings to the demigods and all. It is particularly to that Yajna Purusha, that avatara of that age actually, to please. And he will personally come and receive all that offerings there. Personally he appears there. So like that, karma, dhyana, everything can become unalloyed devotional service, but the direct angas of bhakti should be prominent in our life.
Because of yugas they are mentioned.
If that particular, we have to see particular verse where it is mentioned specifically. If you have to discuss, if you tell me the verse number, then I can see, and next time when we.
Dhruva Maharaj at the last means when he leaves of his.
If you see in the another thing is among the 64 angas of bhakti which Rupa Goswami describes, meditation, remembrance, because smaranam is also there in nine devotional service. So those angas also he explains. Like meditation, no? That meditation I think. That example of Brahmana on the bank of Godavari, Pratishthanapura. He was just he was not actually doing in devotional service. He was just meditating on the activities of devotional service. So he went to Godavari river, then took the water, bathed the deities, then he did Shangar to those deities. Then he had cooked kheer for the deities and he wanted to offer. Before that he wanted to check. So how we will check? We should not put the finger like this actually. We should check like this. If you put the nail, then it becomes unoperable. So he put that finger to check whether the kheer is hot, because too much hot is also unofferable to the Lord. It is described in deity worship procedures. So he wanted to check, and when he put hand, immediately his hand got burnt. Actually, there was no kheer there in reality, if you see, but in meditation only he is thinking. So they are so much, their meditation on Krishna is so deep, it is. So deep. That is called as samadhi state actually. In that samadhi state, one doesn't have to do actual activities. Just meditation is also. There are so many examples like that. Raghunath Das Goswami, once he, in the dream or in just such meditation, he ate some sweet rice which was cooked by Radharani to Krishna, and his stomach got upset actually. But actually physically he has not eaten, sweet rice. Goswami is not supposed to get his stomach get his stomach upset, right? But in his samadhi he is getting. So meditation can also become unalloyed devotion. That is very advanced stage of meditation. It is not the regular yogi's meditation who
They will not come out of so they will stay away from all this. It's those kind of people who enter samadhi. So they will not come to outside society. They will be somewhere in caves.
that is not necessary, because samadhi means it's not just isolated. If you are 24 hours engaged in Krishna's service, it is also samadhi. So samadhi has different meanings again. But yogi samadhi means they just sit in one place and just meditate, absorb themselves. So pure devotees are also always in samadhi, because they are. Sometimes pure devotees may be sleeping externally, but they may be dreaming of Krishna always, right? There are such instances of Prabhupada. Once I think he was going in the train or something, he was sleeping for some time, and immediately he awoke and started dictating, because in the dream he got some inspiration. He asked his secretary to, give that dictaphone, and so like that. Absorption. Samadhi means complete absorption with the supreme, in the supreme. Like that it is defined. That samadhi.
This meditation is something tangible, means we can experience that. But in bhakti, means it's my experience, I don't know. So I'm feeling difficult. In this bhakti we are not experiencing anything, but when we do meditation or something like that, it's something we experience which is tangible to us. Something is happening. The energy is different. There's some feeling we get, but in bhakti there is no tangible effect. So I'm feeling it very difficult to perform.
We should know actually what are the parameters that we are making progress. Okay, even in meditation you are experiencing something. But what is spiritual advancement means? There is one verse in Bhagavatam, you can read that. 11th canto, 2nd chapter, Bhakti Parishana Bhava Viraktir, 38, 39, 40. Bhakti Parishana Bhava number. One of those verses. 11.2.42. 42, yeah. 42. 11.2.42. So there it is said, what is the test of one's advancement in bhakti? Bhakti yoga is even superior to dhyana yoga. After doing Dhyana Yoga also one should come to Bhakti only. And because this is higher yoga, therefore advancement and results become difficult actually. That is one reason. Now what is the test of one who is advancing in Bhakti Yoga? So there one example is given. What is the test that result of eating food actually? Three results are there. Bhakti parishanubhava viraktir anyatra chaishatrika eka kalaha prapadyamanasya yatashnataha tushti pushti kshuddhapayonogasam. So when we eat food, what happens? Our hunger is mitigated, kshuddhapayonogasam. Then while eating food also, that happiness, that taste we relish, tushti it is called, satisfaction or happiness. And we get energy after eating food. These are the three results of eating food. Similarly, there are three results of bhakti actually. One is that happiness of bhakti, happiness we get. So like now, did you get bored to hear this class? I'll not terrorize you if you say that happiness of hearing about Krishna. Like in between, at least I spoke little about some pastimes of Krishna, like Brahma's becoming bewildered. So much happiness we get, right, by hearing that. Indra getting bewildered, pastimes, So that happiness, this is happiness of bhakti. Then nourishment. So nourishment, how we understand that we are getting nourished in bhakti. So basically we get realizations. Okay, one thing is that this material world is a place of suffering, So that realization should happen. So that will give Shakti for us in devotional life. That is called as Pushti. Realizations will give. Now as first is knowledge. Then when we apply that knowledge, we get realization. So when we get realization, we become more and more strong. That is called as Pushti. Just like after eating food, we get strength. But in between there is that digestion and all these things will happen. Then Kshuddhapaya, hunger is mitigated. That means virakti, detachment from material world. Now you test by doing dhyana meditation how much whether we are becoming detached from material world, or by doing devotional service we are becoming detached from material world. You compare your life before coming to bhakti and now, how much you are detached from material world. That is a test of our advancement actually. That happiness, that Shakti energy in the bhakti potency, spiritual potency. That spiritual potency only helps us when all these material attractions are there. We get strength to say no to them actually. That only it manifests as virakti. So the main symptom, if you want to, other things will come gradually. The immediate symptom of our advancement result is virakti from material world actually. That is the test. If it is not happening with us, it's okay, but at least we can see the others examples, right or not? So all these young boys are there who gave up everything. They could have had a great career in their life. They all these boys are engineers. MBA is here. MCA, MBA. They could have had career. So they are just detached from all these things. They only want Krishna. Prabhupada used to tell about his own disciples. Many of them were very fabulously rich kids actually. So they left everything and just followed Prabhupada actually. Like now I am reading this Garga Muni book. His father was a big business New York man actually. So much. They just left. And his father didn't give him his property because he joined Hare Krishna movement. Giriraj Swami, his father was a billionaire. He left and joined Prabhupada, He came. So we have to see others' examples, okay. Then we follow their example. That's why Krishna says we should follow. That verse I read, Mumukshubir, 4.15, previously liberated souls acted in this knowledge. Evam Jnatva Kratam Karva Purvairapi Mumukshubhi. Purvairapi. Previous liberated souls. And in the purport, what Prabhupada says, you see, Supreme Lord knows all his past activities as well as those of persons who acted in Krishna consciousness in the past. Therefore, he recommends the acts of the Sun God, who learned this art from the Lord some millions of years before. All such students of Lord Krishna are mentioned here as past liberated persons engaged in discharge of duties allotted by Krishna. Sometimes our conditionings they curb our enthusiasm in bhakti. They block our progress. So we have to peacefully go ahead. That's why Rupa Goswami in the third verse of Upadeshamrita he says, Utsaha Nishchaya Dhairya Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat.
Instrument also matters. Instrument also matters. Men or women, so one gets in a body because of sin or something.
No, bhakti it's okay. Even women, in fact, they can do better than men actually. Bhakti is highest devotees are.
If a woman gets virakti, then it's a disturbance for men in family life.
It won't happen like that generally. Sometimes it can be shadow of the virakti. It's not actual virakti. Because even bhava stage, one may that rasa. There is one. What is that? Shadow of rasa. Rasa bhava is perverted, mixed. Then rasa. One more technical term is there. Nama bhasa is one. Bhasa. So even if one gets virakti, it's not a problem in family life, no problem. But still they can be in family life and under the protection, because independent life is very dangerous for oneself also and for society also, especially in connection with women actually. But now also you see, in your case, if you take, in fact your devotion is more better than his devotion. Why? Because you do daily household activities. He has to go out and work this job which is nonsense actually. He has to take the karma of that, whatever money he earns actually. You will not be held responsible for that. And you are whole day engaged in cooking, offering to the deity and all these things. In fact, I have seen Matajis are better devotees in ISKCON than one sannyasi. He said to me that in one place where I used to serve before, he said to me that here all Matajis are very good devotees and men always do politics, he said. And many times ISKCON temples are run by Matajis because they come and do lots of services every day, making garlands for the deities, cooking for the deities, cooking bhoga for the deities, and so many things they do actually, practically. And gopis are our highest devotees. We worship them. Opportunity is better for in Bhakti Yoga. There, if you see in 6th chapter, Prabhupada says that in Ashtanga Yoga, one has to, if you want to do Ashtanga Yoga, one has to go to secluded places, practice Brahmacharya. Then Grahasthas are fully excluded from that. How they will do that? This yoga which is taught, commercial yoga which is taught in the big cities and all, that is not yoga which Krishna is talking. The first requirement for yoga is Shucho Deshe Pratishtapya. Shucho Deshe means go to a secluded place, pilgrimage, place of pilgrimage. First, don't be in, Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai and I'll do yoga. It's nonsense actually. That's not a yoga which Krishna is teaching. Then one should brahmacharyam pratishtam, like that he says, one should be celibate fully. Now they have created yoga for sex and all this nonsense. That is not what Krishna is telling.
It is there actually in Hatha Yoga it is there.
What is?
Hatha Yoga it is there. It is a scripture on Bhagavad scripture, not a Prada, Hatha Yoga Pradapika by Bihar. This one is there.
Standard book is, that is Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, that is in sutra form.
Bihar School of Yoga. Bihar School of Yoga.
What is that? What is there? No, Hatha Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, these are all similar name, equivalents. I think Raja Yoga is also in 6th chapter. Prabhupada mentions, I think, that Raja Yoga also it is called as. But anyway, the standard for book is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So all these 6 philosophers were there, 6 rishis. Kapila's Sankhya, Patanjali's Yoga, Gautama's Nyaya, Kanada's Vaisheshika, Jaimini's Mimamsa, and Vyasadeva's Vedanta. All these are in sutra form. Sankhya Sutra, Yoga Sutra, Nyaya Sutra, Vaisheshika Sutra, Mimamsa Sutra, Karma Mimamsa Sutras. They wrote in sutra form, those books. But presently what is practiced is completely different from what is given. Now just Bhagavad Gita, if you see, like I quoted a few words from 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Shucho Deshe Pratishtapya, like that, Brahmacharya following and all these things. So this is actually standard yoga practice which is given. So if you go according to this, we will come to know that. Another thing is, one thing is to know, this never came. What happened actually? Somewhere in between it just disconnects, no?
Disconnected. 15 minutes before.
Now it is not connected.
Connected.
Okay. Anyway, what I wanted to say, in 6th chapter we come to know from the purports and even the verses, the commercial yoga is nonsense, what is being taught here now in the big cities. Even the genuine yoga system also, it is not relevant to present age. That's why Arjuna 5,000 years back only he rejects that actually, saying, so it is not practical like that. So what to speak of all this commercial pseudo yoga actually. Anyway, you have already got result of bhakti. Sometimes it is not perceptible. Sometimes others say, no, our friends, oh, you have changed a lot, like that they say. Our friends, relatives and all, because they can perceive it, what is happening with us. We may not perceive it. ठीक है no I can take.
Patanjali Yoga Sutras also they talk about devotion, but it's only written on it's like 80-20. They don't give complete. They say we have to surrender, but completely they're not. So they'll give more on scientific. And say you have to burn our karma. So all that.
Yes. That's why these philosophies were refuted in Vedanta. They are, you see, yoga is there in Bhagavad Gita also, Ashtanga Yoga. They are there in all these 6 philosophies or 5 philosophies which are there. They are derived from the Vedas only, but they became independent. They came to some wrong conclusions actually. Like karma is there, law of karma is there in Bhagavad Gita also. We also speak about karma, sinful reactions, everything actually. But these karma mimamsakas, they stretched that karma point to the extent that even God is subject to karma. And prescribed duties is the highest thing. Just do those duties and you will get the result. You don't need to worship even God also like that. He will give results because you have done the work. So therefore, Vyasadeva has to write Vedanta and refute all this. In Vedanta, these all other philosophies are refuted. So, but they are there. They are part of the Vedic, but they stretched them to, to extra extent actually. Which karma, law of karma, we are also studying. That is one of the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita, right? We also use logic. We use logic. Without logic, you can't anything. Yeah, right. So we use Nyaya. We study Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy is there in 3rd canto of Bhagavatam. We study all of them, but not in a atheistic way. Our conclusion is in the end Krishna. So Parmanuvada is also described in 3rd canto of Bhagavatam. Anu, Treshareno, Parmanu, Anu, all these things are discussed. That is Vaisheshika philosophy. Yoga, meditation is also there. We are also meditating. Actually in Bhakti you will pass through all these Yama, Niyama, Asana, all Ashtanga Yoga stage. Because Bhakti includes all other yogas also. Yama Niyama means what? 4 regulative principles is Yama Niyama actually. What we are following. Yes, so we pass through all those stages actually. Even in Bhakti Yoga. Only thing is that they do what you said, scientific mechanical process, Prabhupada called it as. So mechanically they control the airs in the body by yogasana and pranayama. The purpose actually of that yoga was, see, Mundaka Upanishad says, that verse is quoted by Srila Prabhupada in 2.17 purport. That soul is floating in these 5 kinds of airs. By doing these yogasanas and breathing exercises, we are separating the soul from these pranavayus, 5 pranavayus. That verse which starts from Mundaka, Eshanor Atma Chetiso Veditavyo Yasmin Prana, like that it comes, no? That verse. So 2.17. So they attain self-realization by this mechanically separating the soul from these pranavayus. So by breathing exercises they purify the air. This is not even taught in all this meditation, whatever which is going on actually here. Their goal is not self-realization at all actually. Maybe they will speak something like that, but that is not attained by any of the yoga gurus actually. I'll tell you.
Saying spinal, means in spinal cord we have all the things
Chakras.
recorded. Means
Chakra.
Not chakra, is spinal cord. So it's recorded, means what our birth we have taken, everything is recorded. Thus karma is in seed form. So when we doing that process, that seeds will get born.
Maybe, but ultimate result has to be given by Krishna actually.
That's also, they say only 20% surrendering and 80%.
Yeah, there generally it's like that, in other processes. But that's why, karma mimamsa and all, that's why they are refuted. They also say that karma is the only thing, you don't need to worship God like that, they say. So in all this yoga, sankhya, karma, so that is how it is. But anyway, what I wanted to say was, so that is a mechanical way of doing things, and we attain self-realization by chanting holy names. Our consciousness becomes purified. Then we come to Brahma Bhuta stage. This is, spiritual, very simple, very, pure process actually. We don't have to do mechanically. And while doing mechanically, so many problems may happen also, so many things. So this is simple method. Just chant Hare Krishna, so we become purified. So like that. Hare Krishna. We'll discuss more. Prasadam. Once more, tomorrow is fasting.